The headlines were becoming a parasitic infection on Vought International's stock price. "Derry, the town that eats its children," screamed the New York Post. National media had descended upon the small Maine town like vultures on a carcass. For decades, the high rate of disappearances in Derry had been a local quirk, a statistical anomaly buried in dusty archives. But in the age of social media and 24-hour news cycles, the Derry curse was trending. In the 99th floor lounge of Vought Tower, Homelander watched a news anchor interview a sobbing mother. His lip curled in a sneer of pure clinical disgust. "Ashley," he bellowed. Ashley Barrett scurried into the room, clutching her tablet like a shield. "Yes, John? We're already drafting a statement." "I don't want a statement. I want it handled," Homelander said, his voice a low, vibrating hum that made the ice in his glass rattle. "The Seven look like cowards. Every day this goes on, people start asking why the world's greatest heroes aren't saving the little brats in Maine. It makes us look weak. It makes me look like I'm not in control." He had sent A-Train and the Deep 3 days ago to clean up the optics. They were supposed to do a few flyovers, kiss a few grieving moms, and maybe catch a local serial killer to wrap the story up in a neat bow. But 24 hours ago, their GPS transponders had gone dark. No calls, no check-ins. "Maybe it's Butcher," Homelander mused, his eyes glowing a faint pre-ignition red. "The boys, they're setting a trap. They think if they lure my team into the sticks, they can use some of that Frenchie's chemical garbage to level the playing field." "We should send a tactical team," Ashley stammered. "No," Homelander stood up, his cape snapping behind him with the force of a whip. "If I let a bunch of bearded hobos kidnap my teammates and get away with it, my will becomes a suggestion. I'm going to Derry, and if I find Billy Butcher there, I'm gonna paint the forest with his intestines." Homelander didn't land in the town square. He didn't want the cameras yet. He wanted blood. He touched down in the Barrens, a sprawling, tangled wasteland of trees and sewage runoff on the edge of Derry where the disappearances centered. The sun had just dipped below the horizon, casting long, skeletal shadows across the forest floor. Homelander stood perfectly still, closing his eyes. He expanded his senses, waiting for the familiar rhythm of the world. He expected to hear the frantic heartbeat of a hidden insurgent, the metallic click of a sniper's safety, or the scent of Butcher's cheap cigarettes. But there was nothing. His super hearing, capable of picking up a whisper from 3 miles away, met a terrifying, absolute void. It wasn't just quiet, it was as if the sound had been surgically removed from the environment. He sniffed the air. No pine, no mud, no rot, just a sterile, cold emptiness that felt like the inside of a vacuum. "Deep? A-Train?" he called out. His voice didn't echo. It felt flat, swallowed by the trees instantly. He hovered a few inches off the ground, moving deeper into the thicket. He found a clearing where the grass had been matted down. There, lying in the dirt, was the Deep's chest plate. It wasn't broken by an explosion or sliced by a blade. It looked like it had been chewed. The high-grade Vought polymer was covered in deep, jagged tooth marks, and a trail of translucent slime led toward a rusted sewer pipe protruding from the earth. Nearby, A-Train's signature goggles were perched on a branch. They were cracked, and clinging to the glass was a single long orange hair. "Butcher!" Homelander roared, his rage finally boiling over. "I know you're here. This spooky forest act is pathetic. Come out and face a god, you coward!" He unleashed a massive burst of heat vision, a 360-degree sweep that vaporized the surrounding trees in a wall of fire. The Barrens should have erupted in the sounds of burning wood and fleeing animals. Instead, the fire burned in total silence, the flames flickering with an unnatural, sickly violet hue. Pop. The sound was tiny, yet it cut through the silence like a gunshot. Homelander spun around, hovering exactly at his eye level. was a single, bright red balloon. It stayed perfectly still, ignoring the wind. "Vought drone?" Homelander muttered, squinting. "No, too primitive." Pop, 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 pop. Suddenly, the scorched clearing was filled with them. Hundreds of red balloons drifted out from the shadows of the unburnt trees. They didn't float upward, they circled him, bobbing gently. Homelander's patience snapped. "I am not in the mood for parlor tricks." He fired his heat vision at the nearest balloon. To his shock, the balloon didn't melt. As the red beams hit the latex, the balloon grew a pair of realistic, wet human eyes. It stared back at him. Then it opened a mouth filled with razor-sharp teeth and shrieked. A massive psychic shockwave slammed into Homelander's brain. It felt like a railroad spike being driven into his temple. He stumbled, clutching his head, his vision blurring. What is this?" he gasped. He looked at the balloons again. They weren't just balloons anymore. Each one now bore the face of someone he had killed. A plane passenger from Flight 37, Madeline Stillwell, a protester he had lasered in the street. Their eyes were wide, weeping blood, and they began to chant in a dissonant, mocking chorus. "You're just a product, John. You're just a mistake. We all float down here. You'll float too." "Shut up!" Homelander screamed. He began to fly in a frantic, jagged pattern, punching through the balloons, but for every one he destroyed, 10 more emerged from the darkness. The balloons began to explode in sprays of cold, black ichor that burned his skin like acid. The balloons suddenly vanished, pulled back into the shadows as if by a giant hand. Standing in the center of the clearing was a figure that defied the logic of the world Homelander knew. It was a clown, a tall, pale entity in a silver Victorian suit with orange pom-poms. Its face was a mask of white grease paint, but the eyes, burning, ancient yellow orbs, looked like they had seen the birth of the stars. "Hello, little John," Pennywise said. The voice wasn't coming from his mouth. It was vibrating directly against Homelander's eardrums. "I've been waiting for a hero. You have such a delicious rotten soul, so much ego, and so much fear." "I don't know who you are," Homelander hissed, his body trembling with a mixture of fury and a sensation he hadn't felt in decades. Vulnerability. "But I'm the Homelander. I can do whatever the fuck I want. I'll fly through your chest and come out the other side." "Will you?" Pennywise giggled. He did a little dance, his limbs moving with a sickening rubbery crunch. "You're not a hero, John. You're a laboratory experiment. You're a lonely little boy who was raised in a tube because nobody wanted him." The forest around them dissolved. Homelander found himself standing in the sterile, white-tiled hallway of the Vought labs. He was 5 years old again. He saw Dr. Vogel standing over him with a clipboard. "Subject is showing signs of emotional instability. He's pathetic. He cries for a mother that doesn't exist. He's not a god. He's a failure." "Stop it," Homelander whispered, his hands shaking. "This is a hallucination. Butcher did this." He lunged at Pennywise, but the clown transformed instantly. He became a towering, skeletal version of Madeline Stillwell. She grabbed Homelander's face with cold, dead fingers. "You were a disappointment, John," she whispered, her jaw dropping open to reveal the glowing orange deadlights within. "I only stayed because I was afraid you'd break the furniture." Homelander roared and unleashed his heat vision point blank into her face. The Stillwell creature laughed as the beams passed through her like light through a ghost. She slapped him, a physical blow that carried the weight of a freight train and sent the invincible soup crashing through a brick wall that shouldn't have been there. Homelander scrambled to his feet. Blood, real warm, metallic-tasting blood leaking from his nose. He had never been hurt like this, not by Soldier Boy, not by Butcher on V. This was different. This was cosmic. Pennywise began to grow. His silver suit tore as massive black chitinous legs erupted from his spine. The clown face remained, perched atop a nightmare of spider-like appendages. "You think your V makes you special?" the monster boomed, the sound shaking the very foundations of Homelander's mind. "I am the eater of worlds. I have fed on the fear of civilizations before your little species crawled out of the mud. You are just a snack, John. A noisy, arrogant little snack." Homelander tried to fly away, but the gravity in Derry had become a sentient force, dragging him back down to the dirt. He grabbed a fallen tree and swung it with all his might, but Pennywise caught it and snapped it like a toothpick. The clown's face split open into 3 petals of flesh, revealing the deadlights, the swirling, infinite orange fire of the Macroverse. Homelander stared into them. For a split second, he saw the truth. He saw how small he was. He saw that Vought, the Seven, and his own godhood were nothing but a speck of dust in an infinite, hungry universe. His mind began to shatter. He fell to his knees, his eyes wide and vacant. "No," he whimpered. "I'm the hero. Everyone loves me. I'm the star." "Nobody loves you, John," Pennywise hissed, leaning in close, his breath smelling of 1,000 years of decay. "They're just afraid of you. And now it's your turn to be afraid of me." The pride that had fueled Homelander for years was gone, replaced by the primal instinct of a cornered animal. He realized he couldn't win. He couldn't punch a nightmare. He couldn't laser a thought. As Pennywise's giant claws closed around his waist, Homelander let out a high-pitched, undignified shriek. He pushed his flight to its absolute limit, a desperate, chaotic explosion of energy. He broke the monster's grip, leaving a chunk of his suit and a piece of his skin in the clown's talons. He didn't look back to see if A-Train or the Deep were still alive. He didn't care about the mission or the trap set by the boys. He just wanted to be away from the Barrens. Homelander tore through the atmosphere, creating a series of sonic booms that shattered windows across Derry. He flew until he was 30,000 feet in the air, the cold wind whipping against his face, his heart hammering like a drum in his chest. He hovered there, high above the clouds, shaking uncontrollably. He looked down at his hands. They were trembling. He looked at his chest. The eagle insignia was torn, and blood stained the bright American flag colors. In the Barrens below, the violet fire finally went out. The red balloons drifted back into the sewers, and the town of Derry returned to its unnatural, heavy silence. Pennywise stood in the clearing, holding a scrap of Homelander's cape. He inhaled the scent of the hero's terror and smiled, showing thousands of teeth. "Run along, little John," the clown whispered to the sky. "The taste of a god, that will stay with me for a long, long time." Homelander remained in the upper atmosphere for hours, too afraid to land, too afraid to be alone with his thoughts. He had gone to Derry to prove his will was law. Instead, he had learned that in the dark corners of the world, there are things that don't care about superheroes. And for the first time in his life, the Homelander knew he was just a man, and a very, very frightened one at that.